public conversation about YouTube's exciting new face blur tool and some of the implications for human rights use as well as for activists around the world. And I'm just going to introduce everybody that's on this call first and then turn it over so that we can start the conversation. So first we have Jessica Mason from Google.
Hello.
And hi. And I have two colleagues joining me from Witness. The first is Raja Al-Tabani, who's our Middle East and Africa associate, and then Sam Gregory, who is our program director. And hi. Sorry, Sam. And I'm Matisse Bustos-Hawks, the communications manager at Witness. So I want to jump right into it. Jessica, thanks so much for joining us. And I wanted to ask just two questions. Why the face blur tool and why now? And if you wouldn't mind just maybe walking people through how the tool works on the platform.
So YouTube is very committed to building tools for activists, for nonprofits, and for educators. Those are three areas that we've identified that are particularly important to the YouTube platform, and we work especially to build tools that benefit those three communities. Now, face blurring is something that the human rights community and activists have asked for a while, and it's also something that we see as a very useful tool. And so around the Silicon Valley Human Rights Conference last year in October 2011, it was something that our team seriously started pursuing. We're excited to now have launched this first version of face blurring. And the way this current version works is when you upload a video, in your video manager, in the video enhancements tool, you can go to additional features and drop that down and select blur all faces. So then there's an algorithm that detects facial features in your video and then blurs out all of the faces in the video based off of the detected facial features. From there, you're prompted to watch a preview of your video with the blurred faces next to a preview of the original video with the unblurred faces. And we strongly encourage that people watch the preview of the video and make sure that the blurring is to their satisfaction, because this is relatively new technology. There are times if a face is obstructed for a long period of time or if there's very difficult lighting, that a face may not be blurred throughout the entire video. At the point that you're satisfied with the blurring in your video, from there, you're prompted to save as, and it actually saves a new copy of the video, and you're allowed the option to delete the original video. And in that case, the original video with the unblurred faces would be deleted from our servers and completely gone. That's my very long explanation.
That's a great, I think, a great walkthrough, and we'll try to provide some links for people once this video is actually cataloged in our YouTube channel with some, a screencast link, because I know you guys are putting together some tutorials about that as well.
Absolutely.
And if, Jessica, you could keep with us for a few more minutes, I think we probably have a follow-up question or two for you. But I wanted to jump to Raja, who, again, as I introduced earlier, is really our point person with activists and networks that we're working with on the ground in Syria and elsewhere across the Middle East. And Raja, one of the questions we immediately got during some of the flurry of amazing press coverage of this that both Google and YouTube and Witness worked to do on last week was, immediately, how are Syrian activists using this, or how could, I would like to rephrase the question since the tool is brand new and Syrian activists are likely not aware of it yet, although I'm sure you're sharing it with them. How can people who are in situations like Syria possibly make use of a tool like this? Why does this matter to them?
In the case of Syria, most activists who are uploading footage or documenting using video as a tool to document human rights abuses and upload, a lot of them are using YouTube as a platform and as a repository for most of their footage. So it is always part of the process when they're uploading footage, whether it's taking it from the activists and uploading it, it usually ends up through YouTube. And two major challenges they have, or two major things that they lack, are resources and time. So you do have a group of activists who have access to editing tools and softwares and programs, who are able to conceal identities and obscure faces, but a major challenge for them is that these tools, because it isn't integrated into the uploading process, it's a separate process on its own, it takes a lot of time. And most of these activists aren't uploading one video a day, they're uploading numerous videos a day covering different scenarios, cities. So to have a tool that's available where they'll immediately be able to obscure the faces of their subjects or even of themselves and upload it immediately is a huge time saver. And then you do have a group of people who don't have access to editing softwares and tools, but do have YouTube channels. And for them, instead of using the methods that they're using right now, like filming behind crowds and having to go through these very inconvenient methods to really protect the identities of their subjects, they'll be able to film more freely while protecting the identity of people in their videos, whether it's protests or collecting testimonies or whatever it may be. And so these are the two major, I think, benefits, and they're huge at the end of the day. But and it's just going to be really interesting to see how far it's used and how much more it's used by activists on the ground.
Sam, did you want to follow up? I mean, I think that this YouTube blur tool is totally amazing in that it's really going to be, it's the kind of technology that's going to reach possibly millions of people, which is a real advantage. But of course, there are still people who are not going to know it exists, and there may be other things, as Raja pointed to, in terms of filming techniques and other sort of low-tech, if you will, tactics that activists can use in order to think about privacy. And there's really some larger sort of underlying questions to this.
Yeah, I think it's tremendous to make this kind of tool more accessible to more people. Because YouTube and spaces like this are where people are sharing their stories. I actually think one of the most powerful usages is going to be individual whistleblowers, people who speak out as a lone individual and want to share their story, want to get it out. Our own experience has been, working with people who've been the victims of torture or are in a criminalized minority, like if you're LGBT in particular countries, how you get that type of story out, making that tool really available is super important. And I think there's two parts to this that are sort of the underlying thing. One is we've always known that it's important to give people options to be anonymous, to be able to conceal their identity when they're facing repression, when they want to stay on popular things. And this, to me, is the start of moving this into a more visual age. And I hope both that YouTube is going to keep refining the tool, but also that other companies will think about it. So that's one of the things. And also that we build in this functionality in other stages. So like when you're filming on a mobile phone, like our ObscuraCam project. But I think it's a really great step that way, because you want to make this functionality, as Raja says, easy, time-saving, and accessible, and having it in a platform like YouTube is a key part of that. But you're right, Matisse, as well. You want to think about security alongside this. This is not a solution to security problems. You've got to think about, are there things in a video that might give you away other than a face? It could be your voice or your background or people you're seen with. And I think it's important to understand that, many times people just need help making good decisions about when to be visible or not. And for us, that's all about the importance of teaching people about informed consent and the options that are available, so they can choose if they want to be courageous and know the risks and be visible, or alternatively, if they know the risks and say, look, this is the right choice for me is to conceal myself, that's an equally good choice for people in their individual circumstances.
Thanks, Sam. And Jessica, wanted to ask you a question that certainly came up and was asked of Google as well as Witness last week in some of the interviews. How hard is it to reverse the technology of the face blur? And I know that you guys obviously thought a lot about that, but is there an answer to that?
Absolutely. So we can't say with 100% certainty that it's impossible to unblur the faces in a video. There's always new technologies that are emerging, technologies that seek to unblur faces and whatnot. However, we've consulted the leaders in this field, and working with our engineers, they feel that we've made it very, very difficult to unblur the faces in the video. In fact, they're so confident that we've made it incredibly difficult that they said to me, we've made it so difficult that you won't even want to try.
And what are the plans, just as Sam sort of alluded to, the fact, and as you just responded, technology is constantly evolving. What are the plans or the thoughts around how this tool will grow and evolve at YouTube?
Absolutely.
To the degree that you can share that with us.
Absolutely, yes. We do make a habit of not commenting on future products or things that we have not yet released. But that being said, this is the tool that's very important to us, and it's something that we do plan to continue to improve and work to release new versions, and that may include new features like selective blurring, updating the current blurring, improving the algorithms, and whatnot.
That's great. Sam, I wanted to go back to the point that you made about, certainly other technologies, but also just perhaps what you're alluding to a bit is digital media literacy with respect to people understanding and even sort of basic filmmaking concepts like informed consent. Could we talk a little bit more about that? Because one of the things that I personally have read a lot about with respect to protests happening from Egypt, from Tahrir Square last year through Syria, et cetera, is that journalists and other people seem to assume that people in those crowds who are going out publicly automatically understand that their image may be captured and then it may be shared quite widely across the internet. And I wonder if that, from an activist perspective, is true, and whether or not there's a bit of education offline that can take place for people around understanding exactly how their image is shared and how it's captured, where it goes once it's been filmed.
Yeah, I think that, again, it's what I think is powerful about this tool is in the long run may actually be not the protest situations where it's used, because in protests often people know they're being filmed and they know that maybe the government is filming them. There's often multiple cameras. It's quite hard to control this. And there's an implied consent. That doesn't mean that people don't think there's a risk, as Raja says. In Syria, people have been filmed from behind. They're courageous. They're out in the protest, but they know there's a risk as well. And so that certainly means that if you're filming something, you might choose to blur faces, even though you know that people are in public, that they might be seen by other sources. Just because you've identified that risk. I think. The situation where this becomes even more powerful, as I say, is the individual who has a story to share and is trying to speak out, maybe for the first time. They're whistleblowing or they're sharing a story which is powerful and where they're the one person in their community speaking out. And in that setting, there's two parts to it. One is, how do we help people understand that when you create a piece of digital media and you put it out in the world, it can be infinitely copied. It's likely to be seen by the person you accuse of an injustice if it gets circulated widely. It'll be seen by your police captain or the army. And then thirdly, of course, in an era of more facial recognition, it might well be correlated to other presences of you out in the world, photo and visual presences. And so that you really want to help people explain that and say, given all that, do you want to be protected? And pushing that power to people to do that. And there, very much, it is a choice point. I can choose to tell my story and place it out in the world because I know I need to get it on YouTube and have it shared. And so helping people have the tools to do that well seems to me to be a key part of this, where there is more choice. Public settings are more complicated because there's more cameras. I think you still want the options, as we know from the Syria example, but private settings and single courageous individuals who speak out may be equally as important.
And Sam, earlier you referenced the ObscuraCam app that we have worked on with the Guardian project. I'm curious just to hear a bit more about other resources or tools, maybe some of which are not technological, that activists can make use of. And also if we could follow that up with hearing from Raja about what are activists on the ground in Syria and elsewhere across the Middle East saying about what they need.
So I think one of the things we've been arguing for around this idea of having better tools for visual anonymity, for blurring faces, has been to have them at different stages of the process. So it's tremendous to have YouTube providing a lead here at the stage of management of your media on an online platform. We also think it's important to have it on mobile devices so that you can control it on your own device before you share it into a platform. The project you're mentioning there is called ObscuraCam, and it helps people do that on an Android device. It's a project we've been working on with the team at the Guardian Project, who are mobile technology developers, and it allows you to selectively blur photos and video, and also to strip out the metadata when you film it on a device. And we think that's something that the mobile manufacturers and app developers should be looking at as well. So in the same way that YouTube has taken a lead on this, and we hope other platforms and social networks as well will follow, we also think it's important on the device side that people have those options. So that's the tool side. We have a number of training materials that we'll be sharing in a blog post, and we'll put the link on this Hangout, that look at how, for example, to use low-tech approaches to concealing identity, like backlighting, artistic approaches to filming someone, just showing their hands. So what are the ways to do that if you think the security's in question, as well as some training materials that really help people think through how to get informed consent, so that you can really help think that through, because we think that's the underlay that then enables people to use a tool well. A tool is not the whole solution, but as Raja says, providing something that's easy, that is has a robust technology, as Jessica was saying, in terms of breakability and decoding, which then people can use in skillful ways and make the right choices, is absolutely the way to go.
And Raja, could you follow up just to sort of share with people what, in particular, people in Syria have been asking for, been talking about in terms of protecting their safety and anonymity better online?
In terms of internet security, I think that's always been a major request whenever I speak to activists. One major thing that they usually ask for are ways to protect themselves while uploading, being able to encrypt emails. But besides that, the more major challenge is, again, filming people while being confident enough to know that their images and their information is secure online. And it's really challenging, especially when they don't have the resources or equipment to do so. So lacking the software and actual physical cameras and high-tech equipment has posed a huge problem and has put more people at risk. But at the same time, it's really pushed people to be more creative and use more practical on-the-ground methods like filming from behind. And that's what, and a lot of what we at Witness train activists to do in terms of filming someone's silhouette or filming their hands or having them even just cover their face. Which are methods that have really inspired the YouTube, this YouTube tool, this face blurring tool. But again, this is one thing that that activists are really looking for. It's that kind of training, that kind of advice, and also these kind of tools that we're coming up with. So it's important to really begin to think about how we can make these tools more accessible and how we could really ask other technology companies to begin to integrate similar tools into their devices, especially devices that are being used in places like that. So yeah.
That's great. I mean, Jessica, do you want to respond to that? I see you nodding your head, but maybe that's just sort of an affirmation of the acknowledgement that there's a need there that you heard from groups like Witness and other human rights activists.
I think that's spot on. Obviously, there's absolutely a need, and I think there's a need for technology companies to implement tools like this, but also to keep improving on the tools and finding new ways and features and different aspects of these tools that can help activists in different situations. And I think that's something that over here at YouTube we're really looking forward to doing.
I want to ask if any of you have any sort of closing comments or any questions of each other before we sign off, and just thank you all for taking the time to chat about this, and thanks to YouTube again for for creating it and for putting it out there for people to try.
No, let me just note that at Witness we're going to be helping activists use this, but we would welcome feedback from people in activist settings who use it on things that are working or tips to make it work well. We've already been experimenting with the right shot size to use if you're blurring someone in an interview, to give some feedback on that. So please share your tips, and we'll build them into our outreach and blog posts around this as we talk to activists about the ways they can enhance their visual anonymity and protect themselves better.
Yeah, so Raja, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just think I'd like to say that this is like a really exciting time, even for me as a former activist who used to be on the ground filming, and I'm sure most activists share the same feelings. Just to be able to film more freely and have a tool like this where we'd be able to document human rights abuses and even have people share their stories without, with like a reduced risk, is super important, and it's an important step, especially with YouTube, such a major platform to take this step forward with us. It's an important step towards the using video as a tool to document human rights abuses, and so just a really exciting time. And I want to thank everybody who's worked really hard on getting this out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Jessica, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think my sort of final remarks are just that one of the greatest benefits that the internet has to offer is the opportunity for free expression, and at YouTube we're incredibly excited that activists come to YouTube to tell their stories, and we'd like to see that continue to happen. So we're very open to feedback, and we're interested in hearing from users about what they think of the tool, what they'd like to see in future versions, and so forth.
Thank you so much. And I think, as Sam mentioned, Witness will be testing the functionality out, and we'll be asking people for feedback. What's the best way for people to give feedback to YouTube directly about the tool?
People can actually email me directly, and I can pass it on to the team. And my email is Jessica, Jessica, Mason, Mason @google.com.
That's awesome. And in terms of how Witness will share out our tests and findings and feedback, you can find us online at witness.org. You can find links to our blog there, and we also have a pretty robust conversation going on Twitter. Our handle is witnessorg there. And of course, you can find us on Google+, which is where we are right now, and YouTube. And we will be sharing this Hangout via our YouTube channel. So we thank everybody who's been watching over the past 20 minutes or so, and we look forward to continuing the conversation both here again, perhaps on a follow-up Hangout, but definitely online in the meantime on our site, on our blog, and on social media. So thank you, everybody, for joining today.
Thank you.
Thank you.